What's happening, my fellow geeks and geekettes? Welcome to a brand new episode of Chris's Custom Collectibles, and today we are going to be pimping out the Jakks Pacific Flash action figure from the upcoming Justice League film. This is the one I have been very excited for. This is the one you guys have been waiting for too. So like I said, we're going to pimp Mr. Allen out in a running pose. So that means taking some of the joints, reposing them, filling them in with some putty, blending it back into the body, as well as some repainting in certain areas, and also detailing the suit. So in terms of repainting the suit, the base red will be staying. We're going to be detailing it with some good old shoe polish. We are going to be highlighting the cable ties all over the suit once the repositioning stage has been completed. I am going to attempt to do some detailing on the face, but it's not a priority. You guys know how I feel about re-detailing skin tone and faces. After that Jakks Pacific Superman, his right foot is going to be embedded in the ground and sort of breaking away the ground as he's stepping into it. So the first step is we have to cut the certain areas that we're going to be repositioning. We're then going to be using that special putty to fill in and reposition and lock in place all the joints to give that running pose. So that being said, let's get to it. Okay, after a lot of cutting, chopping, grinding, I am finally happy with the limbs that have been removed. Now, I was actually fortunate enough to have a remaining screw post left over in Flash's knee here. So what I did is I got a spare steel rod and I drilled a hole in the top of the calf here, and it just slides in like so. So it's gonna make for positioning the knee even better and a lot more easier to glue it in place and then go in with the filler putty. Now, as you can see here, I've completely ground down the head turning stump, and that's because Flash was going to be looking too far down in terms of reposing him. So this way he's going to be looking a lot more upwards and in the straight ahead direction, which seems a lot more aesthetically pleasing instead of looking down. Now, the next step is to glue these in place using that special Selleys primer pen and Selleys toy glue, which is meant for polypropylene, which is what Flash is made out of. So we're going to be gluing that in place first, and then we're going to be using some filler bog to fill in all the joints and then retexture it and repaint it. Okay, now that all the joints have been repositioned and I'm happy with how he's positioned so far, I actually went ahead with a hot glue gun and injected as much hot glue as I could into all the joints just to help with the bonding process. So the final step to really secure these pieces in place is we're going to use some kneaded. This is like a putty dough that you mix up. It's a two-parter, which is actually ready to go. You just have to mush it around with your hands, and then you can start sculpting. Now, once this stuff is dry, we can sand it. You can actually smooth it down with a bit of water whilst it is still gelling. After that, we're then going to be going in with some matte black from Model Masters just to blend it back into the rest of the suit, and maybe do some matte black touch-ups on other black areas of the suit. After that, it's time to start detailing this suit. We're going to be using a mixture of shoe polish, paints to highlight some more of the gold areas, the silver areas. Now, before I move on to detailing the suit, I just want to show you guys this little detail that I added on his right foot, because this is the foot that's going to be embedded on the base, and don't worry, I'll be getting to the base later on in the video. I heated up his foot with a heat gun, like a paint stripper gun, and then folded it in like so, so it looks like his shoe is bending as he's digging his foot into the ground. Again, geeks, I can't stress enough, it's all about aesthetics when it comes to this type of stuff and repositioning limbs. You want the final pose to look as natural as possible. Now with that being said, it's time to move on. We're gonna grab some shoe polish and start to detail this suit. Okay, so I thought I'd just show you guys the difference so far with the areas that have had shoe polish applied. Now I'm just going to show you guys the bottom half compared to the top half and just the stark difference in terms of the reds now, but don't worry, this is not going to be the final look. So once I applied the shoe polish and let it dry, I've just got some piping hot water with a scourer sponge just in a leftover supplement container, and what we're going to do is you just want to soak the scourer sponge, rinse it out as best as you can, and then we're just going to start to scrub away the excess shoe polish, and what is going to be left is all that shoe polish in the detail of the figure, and I can tell already that this is coming up an absolute treat. Because you got to think about it, this suit is so intricate, it has all the gridding on it, all the beautiful mesh, it's just an amazing looking suit. We really want to highlight those details. So already you can see the beautiful detail that we've picked up, so we're just going to repeat that throughout the rest of the figure. Alright geeks, I went ahead, bit the bullet and attempted to detail up Ezra's skin tone, and the method I use is the exact same method for the hands. Just some brown shoe polish, dab away the excess, and I let it dry just a little bit, and then I'd scuff it away with a scourer sponge. So it kind of gives the illusion of freckles and a skin complexion in general. And then just to highlight the lips, I just went in with a very sharp fine brush with some black shoe polish on and just very carefully sliced in a black line in between his lips. Now I'm going to repeat this process around the eyes, but I'm going to make sure to be very careful because the last thing I want is shoe polish staining the white area of the eyes. I'll just focus it out just to show you guys the detail so far. I'm like seriously beyond happy with how this is turning out. So of course the next step after I do the face is we're going to be going in and highlighting all the cables that are mounted throughout the suit, as well as the silver scuff marks from wear and tear on the suit. Now as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to be using a silver Sharpie, very carefully tracing over the cable ties. I will be getting a safety pin and using the pinned area dipped in some chrome silver for the scuff marks throughout the suit. Okay, I've got my silver Sharpie with my very shaky hands going over all the cabled areas. This is probably the most tedious and time-consuming part. I will be going around the seamed areas and cleaning it up with some thinners or some alcohol, just to make sure they're all in a straight line. But for the most part, you can tell already, I've only started on his right leg. It just brings the detail out in this suit. Okay, now that the Flash figure is pretty much complete, it's time to move on to the lightning bolts that are going to be surrounding his arms, parts of his torso, around his feet, on the base. So this is a very simple method, and the good thing is too, it's on the cheap. Here's one I prepared earlier, pre-coloring. So these are going to be colored a transparent blue. All this is, I kid you not, hot glue. So our base is going to be silicone. This is the silicone mold that I have my Batfleck pouches in. As most of you guys know, silicone does not want to stick to anything but silicone. So this is going to be our base. I'm pretty much freehanding all the lightning bolts throughout the silicone, and then when it's dry, we're just going to peel them off. Probably do some trimming where there's little cobwebs and little offcuts of the hot glue sticks, and we're going to go in with a transparent blue spray paint from Redback. I use this a lot, most notably on my mech helmet lenses because I still want that transparency showing through. Of course, we don't want a solid blue. We still want to be able to semi-see through these pieces. Now, they are flexible, which is exactly what I wanted because I want to wrap these around certain parts of the Flash and of course his feet. Guys, I can't stress this enough how cheap this is instead of using casting resin and tinting the resin and making molds. So this is just on the cheap. So that being said, let's get cracking. Alright geeks, it is now time to get started on the base and we're going for simplicity. I don't want the base to look extravagant and take away from the customization of the figure itself. So the idea I've got in my head is that Flash's foot is going to be embedded in the ground, it's cracking away as he's stepping into it. So this is just a simple MDF base from Bunnings Warehouse. These are a couple of bucks. I've gone ahead and put Flash's foot down like so and traced around it. I've just used a Sharpie and drawn all the cracked areas that we're going to be going at with the Dremel. Now I'm also going to be digging into the front portion of the base here, so Flash's foot is sort of embedded in the front part of the base. We're also going to have some debris around Flash's foot and also some extra lightning bolts around his foot. So first step is to carve out all the cracked areas and where Flash's foot is going to rest. So that being said, let's get to it. Alright geeks, here's where we're at so far. So after dremeling out all the cracks and the foot imprint, I got some spare pieces of expander foam and I've mounted them like so. So it's like as though when the Flash is stepping into the concrete, it's breaking away around his foot. Now I'm also going to be covering the foot on the ground with lightning bolts. It's going to kind of be this dynamic looking action shot. Now I did end up going for the peg method to slot him onto these pegs. These are actually two nails. One is obviously shorter than the other. This is where his tippy toe goes and this one goes into his heel. They've been secured in place with Loctite and hot glue. And honestly, that's all I really need to secure them in place. There isn't a whole lot of weight put on these pegs. Obviously I had to have his right foot positioned at the back because of physics. If we had him any closer, the base is going to topple over like so. Now the next step is to prime the base. We're just going to be using a flat grey primer from Rust-Oleum. Now for the actual road effect, this is going to be a road, so I will eventually be doing two yellow strips to indicate the markings of the middle of a road. But for the actual road texture, it's this Dulux Duramax special textured spray paint. This is the stuff I actually used on the Ninja Turtles rooftop diorama. Then we can get to detailing the piece, especially the cracks. We're going to mount the lightning bolt in like so and warp it around the Flash's feet, and we're going to call it a day. Now, whilst this is still drying, I've just grabbed a brush and I'm going in and brushing out the actual surface detail in the cracks, because you think about it, this texture wouldn't be in the cracks. So whilst this stuff is still pliable, and it is for quite some time, you know, you've got about an hour before it really starts to properly set and cure. So this is perfect timing to go in. Okay, so what I'm doing now is going over all the cracked areas and the debris areas with some watered down black student acrylic. Now this is just more for subtlety's sake. Doing this just gives a bit more depth to the cracks, so I go in and clean it up a bit just with a Q-tip so it's not too drastic looking. Next step is we're gonna mix some PVA glue with some driveway dirt and some black student acrylic, and just randomly scatter it around parts of the road, especially this area here where the road has been uplifted. And there we have it, geeks, just in time for the release of Justice League. I am so happy with how this piece has turned out. I really wanted something dynamic yet also simple at the same time, and it wasn't overly complicated. All in all, this took me a couple of days to do. Guys, this piece is available for sale on my Etsy store. I will leave the link down below. Guys, enjoy Justice League this week. I will have my review up once I see it. Hope you're well, hope you're happy, be merry, be silly, and until next time, geeks, please always remember, cosplayers do it best.